The Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, continuing our coverage of the 2018 fantasy football season. Please give the episode a like, leave a review on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Podomatic, doesn't matter where it is, even Audio Boom. That works too. Tune in, iHeartRadio, Radio Public. Everywhere where you can download podcasts, you can find the Pat Mayo Experience. Put me on your phone, take me in your pocket, and kill your hour-long transit ride. Today, probably only like 45-ish minutes as we're reviewing the non-PPR Flex League Experts Draft that happened in New York City last weekend and run by Jake Ciely, who's on the line to break it down with me from The Athletic, if you didn't know already. At AllInKid on Twitter. What's up, Jake?
How's it going? Yeah, The Athletic. I like how you enunciated that.
The Athletic. It's like the PME or the Pat Mayo Experience.
Yeah, so do I need to add that? The All-In-Kid?
I see. I like it. But you're just All-In-Kid, not the All-In-Kid.
Right. Well, I am the only All-In-Kid. I don't care what anybody else says.
All right. If you missed yesterday's show, Jake and I went through all the latest injury news. I updated my rankings, so you can check that out in the description if you want to for pure fantasy football purposes. Plus, I'll have the draft link to this draft in the description if you want to follow along. If you're just listening to this on the audio format, if you're watching it, we're going to have the visuals for you so you can see who was picked where. So, Jake, tell us who was all in this league.
Oh, a lot of people. So you got Scott Barrett from Pro Football Focus, Tim Heaney, Eric Young, WWE wrestler, Sanity is coming out. A bunch of people from fantasy that you know, Greg, Dane, Frank, Tazi Brothers, cool guys, Pat Thorman, Jeff Ratcliffe from Pro Football Focus as well. This is like where it's like if you wrote for the site and somebody else wrote for you too, you all ended up in this draft somehow because we had 3 from fantasy and 3 from Pro Football Focus. But then Bob Long and Michael Florio, who would have been fantasy, but now he's with the NFL Network.
Yeah, NFL.com, Michael Florio. Shout out Mike Florio. I mean, I have a working theory that I want to tell Mike this, that maybe he got hired by NFL so they can use like Mike Florio says, and people will just get it confused.
That would be interesting. He's got Twitter questions before, people thinking that he is the Mike Florio.
Well, this Mike Florio of NFL.com is superior Mike Florio if you need fantasy advice. So I recommend everyone go check him out on Twitter. Mike Florio, great guy. Worked with him a ton at Roto Experts in Fantasy before I came over here. And just like you, before you went to the Fancy Athletic.
The Fancy Athletic? Oh, we just keep adding terms to it now?
Yeah, Fancy the Athletic. Let's talk about round one, dive right into this. The first set of picks are as follows. Todd Gurley, number 1. Elliott, 2. Bell, David Johnson, Kamara, Barkley. 6 running backs to start the draft. Then Antonio Brown to Dane at number 7. Kareem Hunt, Melvin Gordon, Leonard Fournette, Dalvin Cook. And then Florio goes Beckham Hopkins back to back. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't love Florio's draft, but a start of Beckham and Hopkins, even in non-PPR, is really solid.
It is, and it's exceptionally tempting, but because of doing that, you see what ends up turning out. Yes, maybe instead of taking Ronald Jones or Rashard Penny, he could have taken Marshawn Lynch or Deion Lewis. Rex Burkhead didn't make it back to him. So that's the problem is like you can try and say, well, he could have found better running backs to have a stable that you like more, but that's why this is non-PPR. Now, PPR, you can definitely get away with that. In non-PPR, I don't care that Beckham and Hopkins are still both on the board. I'm probably only taking one because I look at the rest of his draft and tell me how much you would prefer that if it was Beckham and Jordan Howard or Beckham and Devontae Freeman or Hopkins. And then you were able to, instead of taking Penny, take a wide receiver like Golden Tate or Tyreek Hill or something like that.
I mean, I don't even know about that. Like, he took, like, Ronald Jones, and Rex Burkhead went, like, a round after. I think he went 2 rounds after. Like, I would have taken Burkhead in that spot, even in non-PPR. I'd just rather have him than Ronald Jones. He did get Peyton
Burkhead?
Yeah, Burkhead. Yeah, he got Peyton Barber in, like, the 12th round, so maybe that can help him out early on in the season if he still remains the starter into week 1, week 2, week 3. And then you can try to pick someone up off the waiver wire after that. But like just having, even in a non-PPR, like I said, having Hopkins and Beckham, my number 2 and my number 3 ranked wide receiver, that really does go a long way. And this is a flex league. You only have to play 2 receivers, or you only have to play 2 running backs. You can pump up your tight ends. You can pump up your wide receivers in that format. So right. I have no problem with that. I like that start.
Well, so because of that, that's where it was. Now I'll go back to what I was saying, and I would have attacked this draft differently because if I ended up with Beckham and Hopkins, I would have continued down that path of you already definitively have the best second wide receiver over anybody, and it's going to be an enormous margin over anybody's number 2. The problem is he waited and waited and waited to start taking those running backs, and then he ended up with Robbie Anderson as number 3. So now he lost that advantage because now he's behind most of the teams as a wide receiver 3. So instead of doing what he did, whether it's Burkhead, whether it's Rashad Penny, whatever, I would have taken a third wide receiver on that turn, whether it was Baldwin or Tyreek Hill or Adam Thielen or somebody like that, who are all there at the turn for the 3-4. And now you're dominating your first 3 wide receivers. And as you said, it's 2 flexes, so you can start 5 wide receivers if you really wanted to. And now you have that advantage that you started with.
Yeah, he took Ronald Jones and Penny at rounds 3 and 4 at the turn. Like, Burkhead and Lynch were both still available. Dion Lewis was still available. You mentioned Doug Baldwin. Like, I would have taken all those guys before the 2 guys.
And those wide receivers, Allen Robinson, Doug Baldwin, Adam Thielen, all those wide receivers.
But it's really Doug Baldwin that stands out to me as, like, the value there, because he went in the 4th round.
Yeah, and that's fair, but that's still, if you're concerned about the injury, I think that Thielen and Allen Robinson in the 4th round are great values too.
Yeah, sure. Was there anything in the 1st round that really surprised you at all when it came down to this? Like, were you expecting to see so many running backs go before wide receiver 2 and 3?
No, I wasn't surprised by this at all. The only surprise, and it would be mild, is maybe saying DeAndre Hopkins falling to if Florio took him first and Beckham second, so he's at the turn, whatever way you put it. I thought maybe somebody would have taken Hopkins over like Dalvin Cook or Leonard Fournette. But it's a non-PPR, so it doesn't surprise me. And I actually expected the running backs to dominate early.
I'm not just completely on board thinking that you just have to take running backs in a non-PPR. Like, wide receivers still have incredible value.
They do, but it's the fact of getting one bell cow running back. And in a draft like this, all the bell cows went before you even got to the 4th pick of the 2nd round.
I mean, you can poke holes into the bell cowness of some of these guys, like with Fournette. Yeldon's still around. They're talking up Corey Grant a little bit. With Dalvin Cook, I still think Latavius Murray, at least early on, is going to play, at least not necessarily a split role, but take enough of the workload that maybe Cook doesn't end up getting to like 70% of the snaps. With Melvin Gordon, everything you see from Austin Eckler is that he's really good, and maybe they don't need to press Melvin Gordon as much. That I don't think that you can just say that, hey, Melvin Gordon is the bell cow. There are red flags around some of these guys. Maybe they're not the most pressing red flags, but they're there.
They're not red flags. They're the little tiny flags that people put in cupcakes. Those aren't red flags.
Yeah, you know what's not a red flag? That DeAndre Hopkins is going to get over 140 targets this year.
What happens if Deshaun Watson gets hurt again?
That's fine. We've seen DeAndre Hopkins still be able to produce as a top 5 wide receiver without Deshaun Watson.
Not consistently. I mean, you want to take your little tiny red flag and you can put it on DeAndre Hopkins too.
All right, so if we're going to keep going down this road, the propensity for running backs to get hurt is much higher than a wide receiver.
And it's actually a little bit overstated, especially if you look at it for the past couple seasons. You lost just as many from years before with Jordy Nelson and Dez Bryant and all the rest of them. Allen Robinson himself. We can go down the list for to play the same game. Odell Beckham last year too.
We can go through that, but at least when wide receivers get hurt, they're done for the season. And then you get the running backs perpetually get banged up more throughout the year. The 16-game rate on running backs does not match what it does for wide receivers.
Look, we can have this conversation for PPR, and I'll give you a little bit more, but this is like you're trying to swat at flies here.
All right, let's go to round 2. So DeAndre Hopkins does lead that off. He was picked number 13 in this draft. Again, paired up with Odell Beckham. I would have put them in the other order. I would have went Hopkins, then Beckham, even though they're on the same team, just to make it look higher. I've got to give some props to my main man, DeAndre. Then it's Michael Thomas, Devonta Freeman, Julio Jones, Jordan Howard, Joe Mixon, Devontae Adams, Keenan Allen, Derrick Henry, LaShawn McCoy, Jerick McKinnon, and then Rob Gronkowski ends up going at the very, very end of the round. I have no real issues here. I think Jordan Howard and Joe Mixon are too high for my liking. Obviously, Jordan Howard is going to be substantially better in non-PPR than PPR, but even just to look at some of the running backs that went after those two, like even Derrick Henry seems too high. Like I would take LaShawn McCoy over all those guys.
I would too, and it really comes down to if LaShawn McCoy isn't suspended, he's going to finish ahead of all those guys. Jordan Howard, I would have taken Jordan Howard there too. Actually, non-PPR, I'll take Jordan Howard in front of Devontae Freeman. I know Devontae Freeman.
Pass on that.
No. Why? Because Devontae Freeman had one good season when all the other running backs got hurt the year that you're talking about.
He still averaged like 15 PPR points per game last year.
And we're not talking PPR. We're talking non-point.
Yeah,
PPR.
But you just said you would take Jordan Howard even higher to PPR. You'd say take him around the same spot in a PPR.
No. I was saying I would take Jordan Howard higher in this draft. Is what I was saying.
I still wouldn't.
I definitively would, because the biggest knock on Jordan Howard is he doesn't get that much usage in the passing game, which is fair. And maybe he sees a little bit more this year with the uses of the shotgun. But look at where he finished last year in non-PPR, and that's what we're doing here. You get that floor. He's just amazing in non-PPR. And Devontae Freeman, I don't trust him to go out there and play 16 games at this point in his career.
I'm blown away that Derrick Henry went in the, not even at the very end. He went with the, what is this?
Look at the team.
It's Eric's team, but he took Derrick Henry. Deion Lewis didn't go till the end of the 4th round.
He's a massive Titans homer.
Okay. Then why not wait for Lewis?
Because he likes Derrick. He thinks that he specifically said during the draft, he thinks Deion Lewis isn't going to even threaten Derrick Henry this year.
That's crazy talk.
I told you, he's a homer.
Yeah, I guess so. So you ended up getting McCoy. I like that pick. Jarek is really interesting here. I would have taken Jarek over Derrick Henry. I would have taken him over Joe Mixon and Jordan Howard, even in this format, and just rolled the dice that he's actually going to be what he's being advertised as. There's a guy with a lot of red flags. I could completely cop to that. But the next running back off the board after McKinnon was to Christian McCaffrey. So in a PPR, you start running back, non-PPR, sorry, but one of those guys is Christian McCaffrey. So you're buying into the talk that he's going to get 20 touches a game?
No, I'm buying into Christian McCaffrey just being what he was last year as the 17th running back off the board. In one of my flex spots already, I'm going to take that consistency floor because, no, I don't get the extra points for the reception, but I still get the yards. People all the time overreact to that a little bit too much. He's my RB3, RB17. And at the board, now, the 2 wide receivers I were planning to take went right before that. It was going to be Mike Evans or A.J. Green. We're going to be the wide receiver I was going to take. But once they went off the board, I like Diggs. I'm just not as sold at him, especially going as wide receiver 10, T.Y. Hilton.
I would have taken both those guys not only over Christian McCaffrey, I would have taken them over Mike Evans too.
See, I thought about T.Y. Hilton, but then again, this is one we have 2 flexes, and running backs dry up super fast when you have 2 flexes. It's just the consistency of the touches is why I went with Christian McCaffrey.
At the back end of the 2nd round, Gronk goes at pick number 24. Kelsey's in the 3rd round. Ertz is at the very end. I think that Gronk and Kelsey actually have more value in a non-PPR than Ertz does. Ertz is still the number 3, but I don't think he's quite on that tier as those two like he would be in a full-point PPR for me. Do you think that that's too high for these guys, or is that right around where they should be going?
No, it's way too high for me. I'm not doing it. I'll take Gronk if he makes it to the 3rd, which means I never get Gronk. And then I'll take the other 2 if they make it to the 4th, because I understand the scarcity of the position, but we'll kind of dive into it maybe a little bit later for this draft talk. But look at it. No other tight end went until we got to the 8th round. And then you get Kyle Rudolph, you get Greg Olsen, Delaney Walker, Evan Ingram. You get those guys while you're able to build your stable of running backs and wide receivers. And for the week-to-week performance, maybe it's 4 points a week or anything but what you've built at running back and wide receiver more than makes up for that.
Round 3, A.J. Green was the first pick at the turn, paired up with Gurley, Gronk, A.J. Green. Not a bad start to the draft for Scott Barrett. I like that team. Mike Evans, Christian McCaffrey, Stefon Diggs, Kelsey, Hilton, Ajayi, Collins, Miller, Ertz, Drake, Ronald Jones. Maybe it's just me, but the back end of this 3rd round looks awful. I like Alex Collins. He's the guy that I really like there, but no, that's just... Ajayi? No.
Well, that's what I was saying. This is what it comes down to, is not only is it non-PPR, so the running backs get absorbed really fast, you also have 2 potential flex spots. And if you're going to get consistency in a non-PPR, you want running backs that are guaranteed touches every single week, so they dry up even faster. And, Lamar Miller doesn't look good in the 3rd round, and even in a non-PPR. I don't like that. I wouldn't take him in the 3rd round. Alex Collins, I'm not sold on his talent. I know a lot of people are.
I am. I actually am. I know your boy Chris Harris is not. I watched one of his videos the other day where he's just really out on him, but just especially in a non-PPR, because I have him ranked highly in PPR, assuming that maybe he can take over some of those receiving down duties. But even if that doesn't happen, I still fully expect him to be the guy between the tackles and the goal line back. I can't really even say that about Ajayi.
No, and I'm in between you guys. I don't hate him as much as Chris does. I don't like him as much as you do. I'm kind of in between. I have no problem with Collins. Again, it comes down to there's too much film where I've seen where I like Chris. I'm not sold on the talent. Could be something that's just, the guy just knows how to play, and the film is just never going to look good. And that could just be the truth when it comes to Alex Collins. But I would have taken him instead of a Jay Ajayi for sure. People are just ignoring the fact that Doug Peterson has always run a full committee out of his backfield.
Like, if you really wanted to skew this, and I know we have to play with picks a little bit, but let's say we talk about Frank's pick here, picking from the 8 spot when he took Kareem Hunt in the first round. If it was me, I probably would have gone DeAndre Hopkins, then looked at the board, not liked any of the running backs, and taken another receiver there. And when you skew everyone down and move people down, that could have been Julio, that could have been Keenan Allen, that could have been Devontae Adams, whatever. And then I could have went like Collins, Marshawn Lynch, Burkhead is my next 3 picks. Like, that's a way where you can go with 2 elite receivers and then get a fine running backs around 3, 4, and 5.
I don't like Burkhead as much in a non-PPR.
I think he's going to be fine either way. He's going to be more valuable in a PPR, but he's going to be not just as valuable, but he's going to be value. He's going to be 5th round value in a non-PPR.
I don't know if he reaches that. That's all going to come down to Sonny Michel,
who I don't think is. I mean, A, he's already hurt, and B, I don't know how great he is.
Look, no talent. He's very talented, but
they're all really. We don't know if they're talented or not at the NFL level. They look great on tape, perfect. Rex Burkhead, good in the NFL.
No, Sonny Michel is good. He's also got an injury concern, as you said. He's also got fumbling concerns, but you put him on the worst possible team for that. So those are 2 big red flags where obviously Rex Burkhead, if Sonny Michel is out there for only half the season, now he could get 5th round value. If Sonny Michel somehow plays 14 games, even not even 16, I don't know that Rex Burkhead gets to the 5th round in a non-PPR.
All right, so let's say you just take those guys, Collins and Lynch in rounds 3 and 4, and then you follow it up with, like, I don't know, Marvin Jones in the 5th, who I have ranked very highly.
I don't want Marshawn Lynch as my RB2.
Why? What's wrong with that?
And what is he going to rush for? 900? I'm somebody who's been taking Marshawn Lynch as my flex running back in a lot of drafts and actually loving that value. I still believe John Gruden is out of his mind and that doesn't really know how to coach anymore. He's been out for 10 years and still trying to run a playbook from 10 years ago and has insisted that Doug Martin has some kind of value and has insisted in all these other crazy things that he's going to do and try to bring back old football like it's going to work today. So I don't trust him to consistently use Marshawn Lynch. And everybody's going crazy over the one run that they saw get called back last week. And Marshawn Lynch is all of a sudden 28 years old again. And I am a supporter of Marshawn Lynch, but I don't want him as my RB2 because 900 yards and 6 or 7 touchdowns is not exciting. Actually, that's not even an RB2.
I'm not really big on him as like a 4th round pick, especially when like Doug Baldwin is within like 3 picks of him. I'd take Doug Baldwin 100 times out of 100. So maybe that's a move. 2 receivers, a running back, Doug Baldwin, then Rex Burkhead. I just like the upside of that team. Like, I could have potentially 3 very high volume wide receivers and running backs that aren't going to kill me. And then you hope to spike someone late in a draft that you can play as a flex or an RB2 when needed.
Well, as we're kind of the discussion's going, it's just you got to watch the board and play the draft. That's really what the truth is.
All right, so Ronald Jones went at the very end of the 3rd round. We talked about on Florio's team. That was before the Peyton Barber has been announced as the starter. Would you think that Ronald Jones would go a lot later than this then?
If this draft was today,
yeah.
I think he'd probably slide back around.
All right, so round 4, Rashad Penny is up there as the first pick. Then Tyreek Hill, Baldwin, Thielen, Cooper, Jarvis Landry, Marshawn Lynch, Juju Smith-Schuster, Corey Davis. Eric Young really does like Titans. Allen Robinson, Dion Lewis, and then that awful Mark Ingram coming in at the back end of the 4th round. Now, I have zero objectivity when it comes to Mark Ingram, running back number 26. I still feel like that's a bit high.
Where's 27 and 28? So 27 was
Royce Freeman.
Okay.
Who I'd much rather have Freeman. I'd much rather have Burkhead. Crowell, Hyde, I don't want any of those guys. Who's Jay Williams? Is that Joe Williams?
Where?
At Dane Martinez in the 6th round.
No, that's Jamal Williams.
Oh, Jamal Williams. I'd rather have Jamal.
Yeah.
I was like, Joe Williams. Like, that seems high. Yeah, no, I'd rather.
Well, you hate Mark Ingram too. For Mark Ingram when he's back after 4 weeks, it's a fine. Now I agree. I would take Royce Freeman. I'd probably take Jamal Williams and Tevin Coleman, maybe even Kerryon Johnson, but he's at least in that conversation.
I don't think so. That seems way too high for a guy that's going to miss 4 games and then return to a role where he might be the number 2 in the 4th round.
You hate Mark Ingram.
But okay, explain to me why he'd be a better pick than Rex Burkhead, even if it is non-PPR.
Because you can make up those first 4 weeks and then get an RB2 when he's back.
You might get an RB2 when he's back.
See, that's what you keep saying.
You might.
That's fine. Look, you're on the other side. And this is one of those things. It's like the people on Twitter. Like, if you're going to keep arguing back, not coming after you, I'm just saying, if you're going to keep arguing back, that's obviously your stance. My stance is he's an RB2 when he comes back. I don't think Mark Ingram is all of a sudden going in the doghouse when he comes back in week 5.
Based on how this draft shook down, round 4 and round 5, the receivers that went, this is actually where the value receivers, I think, really hit. Like, you have Hill, Baldwin. I prefer Baldwin. Thielen's there, Cooper's there. I like Baldwin, Thielen, and Cooper as picks in this range. Juju is right there as well. Those would be my 4 favorite. But even if we scroll like to round 5, DT in a non-PPR is still a good pick, but I think I'd rather have Marvin Jones. And then Chris Hogan's in that range. If you had started running back like you did, and then you went receiver, you did pick up some really good guys along the way, so it worked out for you, but I wouldn't have known that was how the draft was going to break down going in. Had I have known that, that might have changed my philosophy a little bit, but I think even if I had started receiver, I would pick up more receivers, because that's where the value rested in these rounds.
Yeah, and that's what I was looking at. Is you kind of saw how the room was working, and there should be some there. And obviously, if this was today with the Alshon Jeffrey news, I probably would have taken Chris Hogan or even rolled the dice on Josh Gordon. But if you looked at it, there was a lot of value. I mean, go back, look at my 8th round pick, and it is non-PPR. But even in non-PPR, Julian Edelman as my 4th wide receiver after starting 3 straight running backs and also taking Chris Thompson before I even got to him. I think there was just plenty of wide receiver depth in this draft.
Well, it's funny because Dane ended up with both of them, but he ended up with them around later. But in what world are people taking Jarvis Landry in a non-PPR over Chris Hogan?
This one, Dane? I don't know.
That just seems strange to me.
It's all, look, Jarvis Landry can do that if Josh Gordon doesn't play a game this year.
He might do that if Josh Gordon doesn't play a game this year.
No, he finished ahead of him. He finished ahead of what Chris Hogan would have been over 16 games. Like, do we really? You know this. I said it on the other show. Chris Hogan was a top 10 wide receiver when he got hurt. Do we really expect him to be on that pace for all 16 games? I don't think so. Obviously not. So he's a top 20 wide receiver. Well, Jarvis Landry is still a wide receiver 1 in non-PPR. I think he was, what was he, 11?
Yeah, but he also wildly outprojected the touchdowns he was supposed to score. And now he's going to an offense that's just not going to. He is not even without Josh Gordon there. Let's say it's no Josh Gordon, no Des Bryant, no nothing. It's just Jarvis Landry and Rashard Higgins and David Njoku, and that's it. You're still looking at less volume for Jarvis Landry because that Browns offense just isn't going to throw as much as Miami did last year.
No, I don't know that you're looking at less volume because he might be less volume as a team, but if there is no Josh Gordon, he'll see 130, 140 targets because there's nobody else to throw to. And I like David Njoku. I like Rashard Higgins, but we did that game last year too. And I was a Rashard Higgins fan, but what has he really done?
If it was you, would you have taken Juju or Landry? Because I would 100% taken Juju.
I'd taken Landry because I'm scared of Juju.
No, don't be scared of Juju. He has good Juju, not bad Juju.
And not bad Juju. Hey, I talked to Mike Tomlin one-on-one, face-to-face. He loves some James Washington. I'm just telling you.
All right. Coach speak is one thing we all need to buy into at all times, right?
Hey, that wasn't. We weren't on. This was not a recording. This was just 2 people talking about players and talent.
But like, would you take Landry? You took Allen Robinson at the back end. If they were both on the board,
Allen Robinson.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you still would have taken Allen Robinson.
100%.
And then you followed it up with Alshon Jeffrey. I mean, before you knew about the injury at the time you did this draft, I'm guessing you would have took Alshon over Jarvis too.
Oh, and to go back to it, yes, I definitely would have. And if Josh Gordon's playing, I'm with you. I'm taking Hogan. I'm taking Fitzgerald. I'm taking Golden Tate even. There's a lot of wide receivers I'm taking before Jarvis Landry, even in non-PPR if Josh Gordon's playing.
Round 5 starts off with Demaryius Thomas with the first pick. Then it goes Marvin Jones, Alshon Jeffrey, Royce Freeman, Aaron Rodgers, the first quarterback off the board in round 5. Larry Fitz, Chris Hogan, Josh Gordon, Rex Burkhead, Brendan Cooks, Golden Tate, and Isaiah Crowell. Are people buying Isaiah Crowell? Because that seems like a terrible idea.
Yeah, they are. And I don't know that's a terrible idea if Elijah McGuire misses a lot of time.
Yeah, but isn't Crowell already concussed?
No, he was in the concussion protocol. He just kind of took a shot, and they were just playing the safety route. The NFL on top of its preseason, extra precaution. He's not concussed. Well, at least unless something comes out later this week. But it's been plenty of time since that game where it didn't seem like there was any report of him actually being concussed. It was just checking for a head injury.
Now, there's a lot of good players in this round, guys that I really like. Like I really like Marvin Jones and Chris Hogan. They're two of my favorite wide receivers this year that I end up with a lot, and I usually get them rounds 4, round 5. This is around like where they're going. I have no problem with them. I love them. And I don't know if I would have pulled the trigger on Rodgers here, but I have no issues with anyone taking Aaron Rodgers in round 5. I just don't.
No, and that's one of the things we say as we hit, we do this draft to everybody online, everybody listening when it was on Sirius XM, everybody tweeting about it. It's like the quarterbacks are not going to be the same for your home league. You have to understand Aaron Rodgers is going in your 3rd round. So if you have an experienced league who understands and does wait on quarterback, if you get to the 6th, I'm definitely taking Aaron Rodgers. If he's there in the 5th, I might consider. I actually thought about it for a second, but because if this was one where there wasn't 2 flexes and I only started running back, and then I didn't draft McCaffrey and got a better wide receiver earlier, I probably would have considered it instead of taking Jeffrey because I needed a second wide receiver.
Now, Aaron Rodgers is not the number 1 quarterback on my board, so when we scroll to the 6th round and take a look at this, it goes Hyde, Watson as the 2nd quarterback gone to Bob Lung, Sony Michel, Sammy Watkins, Kerryon Johnson, Jamal Williams, Robert Woods, Tevin Coleman, Russell Wilson, Emmanuel Sanders, Nick Chubb, then Tom Brady. The pick of the round is Russell Wilson to Eric Young in the 6th round. Like, anytime you can get Russell Wilson in the 6th round, do it, is my advice.
Actually, that's another one. So that's where I started considering it a lot more. Again, he kind of made the decision for me and made me feel good because Emmanuel Sanders, even in non-PPR,
is good.
Sanders is
He's good. Listen, Emmanuel Sanders is good, and he's being underrated this year. I completely agree. But if it came down to it and Wilson hadn't gone a pick before you, I would have 100% taken Wilson.
And that's what I'm saying. I don't have a problem with that, and I would have strongly considered it, but that's what I'm saying. He made the decision for me. I would have been a little tentative to do so because, again, I started 3 straight running backs, so I needed a 3rd wide receiver. A lot of things that changes by how your team makeup is, and I was really hoping for that, and then he didn't go, so, I ended up with Sanders.
So Hyde goes at the beginning of the round. He's just a guy that I just end up with no shares of because I don't actually know when to take him. I have no idea how that backfield is going to break down, but both Cleveland running backs go in this round. Do you have a stance on either of them, or are they just both kind of avoids for you unless Chubb falls really late into the draft?
I believe in Chubb. I believe he takes over at some point. Where I keep making the comparison to last year is if you look at the Vikings, they signed Latavius Murray because they didn't know how the backfield was going to shake out. And then they have a supreme talent fall to them into the draft. So they draft them, and we saw what happened until Dalvin Cook got hurt. Now, where this is similar is they signed Carlos Hyde, not knowing how the season was going to go, not knowing what the draft is, and then the talent of Chubb was there. The difference here is I think that if you look at it, Carlos Hyde has more to offer than Latavius Murray. And that's where I say that unlike Dalvin Cook, who took over for week 1, Nick Chubb might take a few weeks. So that's why I'm not taking Hyde. I'm taking Chubb because where they're going, you're looking at long-term value. And Hyde is going to lose his, where I see Nick Chubb gaining in value.
Sony Michel and Kerryon Johnson go in this round. I got a hot take for you. How about this? You ready? In a non-PPR, LeGarrette Blount outscores Kerryon Johnson.
Wouldn't surprise me. I don't think it's going to happen, but it wouldn't surprise me.
So where did Blount go in this draft?
Decent value, I think. He went second pick, 11th.
Yeah, he went in the 11th round. Like, there's double the rounds of difference between the two. That's not right.
And he's the 51st running back off the board.
That's crazy. Like, especially in this type of format, he should be going higher.
He went after both Redskins' speculative running backs and Rob Kelly and Samaje Perine. He went 1 pick after Bilal Powell in a non-PPR. So,
you're with me on that one.
Oh, I'm with you on that one, especially because Deonta Foreman, who could start the year on the PUP and be out for 6 weeks, went 2 rounds before him.
I do like Deonta Foreman, but that's probably a bit too high. I'd rather have LeGarrette Blount. If I'm going to take Foreman, I'm going to take him in like the last round. That would be the way I would look at it.
And he's not making it there. Nobody's treating him at the fact that this guy might not play till week 7.
This is true. Round 7. Let's talk about that. We have Marquise Goodwin to lead it off, then Funches, Chris Thompson to you. Chris Carson, who's apparently the starter in Seattle. I mean, at his value in the 7th round versus Penny's as the first pick of the 4th round, I'd rather gamble on Carson and him just keeping the job right there than take Penny where he went. But Crabtree, Cam Newton, Jamison Crowder, Cobb, Fuller, Devontae Parker before the broken finger, Pierre Garçon, Robbie Anderson. I like the Robbie Anderson pick a lot.
I like the Robbie Anderson pick too. 39th wide receiver off the board. You're not getting a ton of return value there, but if he is what we saw last year in spurts, he could get into the top 25 range. So there's about maybe a round and a half potential return on that.
If I was you, I would have taken Michael Crabtree instead of taking Chris Thompson. Just based on the way that your team was constructed. You had 3 running backs already, good running backs, and your 3 wide receivers are good, but Crabtree has the potential to be the number 1 on his own team. He could be a top 20 receiver, even in non-PPR, if that offense is a little bit better than we thought. That for the construction of your team, I think I would have preferred Crabtree into your mix. I like Chris Thompson. I like him a lot. Prefer him in PPR, obviously, but I think Crabtree, for the fit of your team, might have been a better pick.
And I can see that. When it really comes down to me is that we could start 2 flex. And Chris Thompson, to me, trying to figure out Kelly or P. Ryan, I'm not going to do that. I just went with Chris Thompson, who even in a non-PPR is going to be my 4th running back. And also, if you look at what I did for the rest of the draft, I didn't draft the running back till my last pick of the draft. So I have those 4, and knowing I can just rely on those 4, and then I just got tons of wide receiver depth.
Marquise Goodwin goes in the same round as Pierre Garçon, but he goes before him, 8 picks ahead. And with the news that came out Tuesday that Jimmy Garoppolo loves Marquise Goodwin, he's his first look. Do you expect this to be more of the trend moving forward in drafts that Goodwin will go ahead of Garçon?
I think you're especially going to see it in non-PPR, absolutely, and probably in PPR too. If not back-to-back, I think that Goodwin's going to start to separate from him a little bit because we have the questions that Pierre Garçon. Is he 100%? What does he have left? I still believe, as you know, and I think that he's great value in PPR, but I think that you're going to see Goodwin move in front of him no matter what the format is.
All right, round 8 starts off with Andrew Luck as QB6 off the board. C.J. Anderson, Sterling Shepard goes next. Jimmy Graham, Cooper Kupp, Aaron Jones, really?
Aaron Jones.
Nyheim Hines goes next. Then you have Kenny Stills, Kyle Rudolph, Julian Edelman to you, Nelson Aguilar, then Greg Olsen. I don't know if I was to give out what I think the best pick of this round is. It might be Stills. Why are Aaron Jones and Hines going there? Especially in a non-PPR, why is Hines going ahead of Wilkins? I know Greg took them both, but that seems strange.
I think that people are really excited about his explosiveness and thinking maybe he can be like the Chris Thompson situation is, hey, we get down to the fact of no Marlon Mack, nobody else, and it's just Wilkins and Hines. Maybe he can be the more valuable option, even though he is the pass catching option. So I think that's the thought. I don't agree with it. I'm with you. I think there's some interesting players that went after a lot of these. So I'm with you on this one, especially with Aaron Jones. Look, I told you before, there's 2 scenarios. Well, 3 is that they just keep time sharing when he comes back. But the 2 biggest scenarios he comes back to is either Jamal Williams plays great in the first 2 games, does well against 2 really good defense, and Aaron Jones doesn't come back to anything, or Jamal Williams looks like trash against those 2 defenses, and then Aaron Jones comes back to a terrific situation. So I understand the speculation on him, but as you said, a non-point PPR, I'm just looking for more consistent volume, and Aaron Jones definitely concerns me.
So Graham, Rudolph, and Olsen all go in that round. Then when we go to the 9th round, we got Kelvin Benjamin, pass. Evan Ingram, Delaney Walker, Doxson, Jordy Nelson, Jordan Wilkins, Donta Foreman, Jordan Reed, Ice Cream Cohen in a non-PPR. I don't know how well that's going to work out. Chris Godwin, Marquise Lee, and Trey Burton. I'm really surprised Trey Burton ended up tight end 10 at the end of the 9th round. That blows my mind.
Oh, that it blows your mind that he made it that far?
Yeah, because he's been going as tight end 5 in some drafts.
Well, so I can tell you exactly how it ended up. Well, I don't understand why Frank didn't take him instead of Jordan Reed. I understand the upside of Jordan Reed is he's a top 3 tight end if he ever played 16 games, but really, we're banking on that, really? The problem is I was the one that kind of set that in motion because I was planning to get Evan Ingram, and then I got sniped right before my pick. I already have Allen Robinson. That's why I didn't take Trey Burton. I didn't want to start both of them out there every single week. So that's why I pivoted over to Delaney Walker, which made Trey Burton slide. Again, if I was Frank, I would have taken him instead of Jordan Reed. But once he took Jordan Reed, that's how he ended up with Trey Burton as 10 and not 8.
Well, the way that this broke down, I like where Burton went. I actually would have jumped on that. But if not, with all the guys going in this range in a non-PPR, and we'll get to it here in a second, there's just another range of tight ends that went that I don't think are markedly worse than these guys. And they all went 5 rounds later.
No, then that's definitely something you can look at. I still like Delaney Walker, even though I crapped on him on yesterday's show.
I listen, and I like Delaney Walker, but I do prefer him in a PPR.
Yeah, obviously.
So who else went in that round? Doxson. This is not a great round of picks. We're really getting thin.
The corpse of Jordy Nelson.
Yeah, the corpse of Jordy Nelson. He's like with Mark Ingram in worst place for this season. So,
I actually prefer a lot of the wide receivers in the next round.
Yeah, well,
Mike Williams, Anthony Miller.
Yeah, let's get to round 10 because I thought this was surprising. Clement went at the very top, then Jack Doyle, Rob Kelly, Samaje Perine, Mike Williams, Cam Meredith, who got banged up with an undisclosed injury on Tuesday, so who knows now. Alan Hearns, Duke Johnson, Devontae Booker, Carson Wentz to you, Anthony Miller, and Marlon Mack. The Mack thing was really surprising to me. I know he hurt his hamstring, but the fact that he went 2 rounds after the other 2 Colts running backs is really surprising.
Yeah, I think people are overreacting a little bit too much to that. But it really comes down to is it's not the hamstring injury. You know this. How many times have you and I talked already? I'm kind of out on this entire backfield unless it's one cheap person. Hines in PPR, he falls into the 12th or 13th round. Wilkins in non-PPR if he makes it that far. Mack had been going the earliest. I would have thought about Mack if he made it like one more round back to me on the turn. But I also had plenty of running backs, so I wasn't even looking that direction anyway. But this is going to be a committee. Robert Turbin, I know, is suspended, but he's going to come back, and this team was using him first before anybody else just a few weeks ago before he was supposed to be or is going to be suspended for the first 4 games. So this is a committee I want nothing to do with.
I like the Mike Williams pick. I like the Alan Hearns pick. I don't know if Alan Hearns is going to be any good, but I think that even in the back end of some drafts, I've been just taking Hearns and Michael Gallup and just wait and see which one it turns out to be. I think it's going to be one of those 2 that ends up as sort of the target whore in Dallas. And if you can get one of those guys, that's great news.
I think it'll be both of them. I think both of them can see plenty of targets, 100 plus. So who else is he throwing to? I mean, look at the tight ends. They can't figure out who the tight end is, if it's Jarwin or Gathers. Apparently nobody likes him.
Yeah. Apparently Uncle Rico is on the roster bubble right now.
Yeah, so I don't know what's going on there. I guess he just can't block worth of crap, or maybe this all passing game work that we saw last year just diminished and it was just a fluke. I don't know what it is, but they don't even know what the point is. They don't know what they're doing at tight end. So you have Ezekiel Elliott, maybe Tavon Austin, this whole nonsense about the backfield and turn him in loose and giving him 10 to 15 touches a game. Well, okay, let's look at the wide receivers. And Terrence Williams, I don't care that the Cowboys keep trying to make him a thing. He's not. So you go down to Alan Hearns and Michael Gallup. You're telling me both of them can't have 100 plus targets this season?
No, I mean, they most definitely could, but one of them could just be completely awful too. Like you do have that, but I mean, that risk is all baked into where they're going in drafts because Hearns is going in the 10th round.
Right.
But I
watched Dak Prescott be a top 10 quarterback, and those would both be like wide receiver 2s and piss us all off.
Did Dak even go in this draft? I don't think he did.
No.
So now
Matthew Stafford was the 16th damn quarterback, the last quarterback off the board in the 15th round.
Well, that's because someone drafted Jared Goff as QB 12.
Yeah. No, by the way, Stafford was also the 2nd quarterback for the guy who drafted Deshaun Watson.
Awesome. Backup quarterbacks. That's how you win, especially the first 4 weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so picks from beyond round 10, 11 through 16 towards the end of the draft that I just kind of liked. I mentioned one earlier. One is LeGarrette Blount. I just think that where he's going, especially in a non-PPR, that's just way too much value to pass up.
No, there's no question about it. It's non-PPR is where the value is. You want nothing to do with him in PPR. But, if you're playing non and he's getting touchdowns 10, maybe gets 10 out of the 16 weeks, I mean, you're going to have an RB2-ish, 2-3 on your hands at season end, but you'll get more useful games than not.
Yeah, and Michael Gallup, wide receiver, number 56. Frank took him. I like that pick a lot too. Again, I almost want to pair up Hearns and Gallup together in these back end rounds, especially if I've waited at wide receiver. I'm trying to build some depth just to see if one of them ends up being the clear cut. Maybe like you said, maybe both of them are good, but I have a feeling that one of them will end up establishing themselves. And since I don't know who that is, I'm not spending a lot of draft capital to find out.
No, I'm with you. Same situation. I actually like 2 wide receivers in the next round too.
Oh, who are they?
John Ross and John Brown, the Johns.
They were both next up on the list of the guys that I really like. I don't really love John Ross all that much, but I just think that, he was a top 10 pick in the draft. He does have a lot of talent. He's now the number 2 on this team. Who knows how long Tyler Eifert's going to be healthy for the Bengals, that it's worth the upside here that maybe he actually is good. And I mean, you took John Brown. We talked about John Brown on yesterday's show. He's not going to win you a league, but especially in this type of format, if some of your receivers get hurt or some of your running backs get hurt, if you have to play him as your wide receiver 4, which you can do in this format, he's going to be fine.
No, he's definitely going to be fine. And I actually might need him for week 1 looking at my roster.
Yeah, cool. You drafted Des Bryant as well, right?
Des Bryant, Julian Edelman, Alshon Jeffrey. So as of right now, I have Allen Robinson, Emmanuel Sanders, and John Brown.
So when I talked about the tight ends earlier, Eifert went in the 11th round. Kittle went in the 12th round. O.J. Howard and Vance McDonald. Vance McDonald I do like. I think he's more valuable in a PPR, but he did go in the 13th round. But then you got like Ricky Seals-Jones, your boy. You took Njoku in the 13th round as well. Like, I know you have Delaney Walker, but there might come a point of the year where you just say, screw it, I'll play Njoku.
And that's what it came down to is, Delaney Walker concerned about the age. It's non-PPR instead of PPR. So that obviously swings the balance between the two and makes them closer. But also what was on the board at that point in the 13th round, Njoku versus Paul Richardson and Ty Montgomery. And you know what? Njoku shouldn't have been there. So for me, that was actually the best name that was on the board.
The other one was, I'm trying to figure out how this draft went. So odds go this way. So you had the choice between Ryan Grant and Chris Ivory. And you're a LaShawn McCoy owner. I'm surprised you didn't take Ivory.
I thought about it, but it was more for the fact that if I'm trying to piece together wide receivers at this point, and again, I have 4. If I lose LaShawn McCoy, Chris Ivory's not going to save my team.
He might help you tread water until you can find something else or make a trade.
I could tread water. I could slide up Christian McCaffrey to RB2 and Chris Thompson to RB3, and then hopefully have one of these. Put it this way. The biggest thing about Ryan Grant, we talked about before, I was on Deion Kane because I believed in his talent more than anybody else in that team. The number 2, if we knew who it was as of today, hey, this is the number 2 wide receiver for the Colts. He is playing all 16 games as the number 2. He would be going inside the top 35 wide receivers.
Antonio Callaway got drafted. My main man, Ben Watson, didn't. People should draft Ben Watson. He's good.
I would take Ben Watson over Ebron, over Vernon Davis.
I'd take him over Ricky Seals-Jones. I'd take him over O.J. Howard. I'd take him over Jack Doyle. I might take him over
Vance.
I would take him over Vance, actually. I have them back to back.
That's like picking between your favorite kids, man.
Yeah, I know. I have them back to back my rankings. Like, I like Vernon Davis. I like what he presents, but I wouldn't just take him in a draft over Ben Watson, knowing I can't use him in like weeks. Until Jordan Reed gets hurt, I can't use Vernon Davis.
Well, to be fair, that was the team that drafted Jordan Reed.
Now, do you think that's a sound strategy, drafting a handcuffed tight end?
At this point of the preseason, it's not a bad strategy because if Jordan Reed isn't, I think we'll have a good idea of what Jordan Reed is by week 1.
Corey Coleman goes in the last round. I think that's worth a last round flyer if you're gonna take one. You took Joe Williams?
No, Jonathan Williams.
There's so many Jay Williams on these stupid lists.
There's Joe, there's Jamal, there's Jonathan. Who else? I think that's it.
Yeah. Deshaun Jackson, the last pick of the draft.
Last pick of the draft. How about that?
But Godwin goes in the 9th round. Djax goes in the 16th round. Like, I like Godwin objectively better if you take out any value, but I think that's a much better value pick getting Djax there because he could be better.
Well, we talked about it a week or two ago. Whenever that show was, I'm a huge Godwin fan, but he and Deshaun Jackson could cancel each other out and make both not worthy of using in fantasy. They will have a ranking at the end of the year where both of them could be inside the top 40, 45 wide receivers, but trying to use them week in and week out is where I'm saying they could cancel each other because on top of that, you have O.J. Howard, you have this backfield, you have Cameron Brate still hanging around. And that's the problem is, maybe Deshaun Jackson in the slot, you look at the situation here and who knows when you're going to get value out of each. Jake
Ciely of The Athletic. Pimp yo shit.
The fancy The Athletic, apparently. Remember? Don't you include that? You know what? I didn't get my shirt on. I can't believe it didn't show up. It's Duck Hunt with Scrooge McDuck. And I'm so mad that it got cut off.
Where do you get all these shirts from?
T Public.
Okay, I might have to write that down. Get some fancy tees myself. Some fancy The Athletic tees.
Yeah, so T Public. So I did those. And there's another one, too. Ripped Apparel, I got a few from there, too. In any case, that's what we're talking about. Follow me at All In Kid. Go to The Athletic. The rankings are free this week, so hurry up and go enjoy them. But if you sign up, you get everything on The Athletic. And that's where I am now. And I'm working on the podcast, I promise. But and the good news is Pat's so gracious that he has me on here anyway. So you get to see my face and hear my voice.
Yeah, we're getting more of Jake now that he doesn't have the podcast to do until he starts that up. Well, you'll have nonstop All In Kid on the show.
All the time.
All the time with All In Kids. So like I said, Jake's rankings are free for this week, and then you have to subscribe to The Athletic and get a membership there in order to see them, because Jake is the most accurate ranker in the biz. When you have the shittiest ranker in the biz, my rankings are free, and you can find them updated in the description. You can find the entire Pat Mayo Experience draft kit, the link in there as well. All the shows, there's over 25 now. Sleepers, busts, rankings, everything you need to know, plus all these injury updates, draft reviews, anything you need, all free, on demand, whenever you want them, video and audio versions. Please give the episode a like, and that'll do it. I'm Pat Mayo. Good luck this fantasy football season. I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!